Perhaps the greatest film that has ever been made was 1982's Dino De Laurentiis production of Conan the Barbarian, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger in his first role in which he gave his own lines. And at the beginning of this film, which is very Nietzschean and Wagnerian, it begins with the father of a young Conan telling him the kind of the origin myths of his people, the Sumerians, and in particular the riddle of steel as he's forging this incredible sword. And he explains, as he tells how men came to learn how to forge steel, that with steel comes a riddle. And he says, you must learn this riddle, Conan. You must learn its discipline. Because in life, no one can you trust. Not men, not women, not beasts. And then he brandishes the sword and looks at it and he says, this you can trust. And that sets Conan off on his journey of life. You can imagine what kind of life he would lead with that kind of mindset, right? And with a poignant and probably a very intentional irony, not very long after that, poor little Conan's village is attacked by raiders led by the villain Subu, and you watch as his father is struck down by the raiders, by dogs, by beasts, and as he falls to the ground, the sword flies from his hand and lands in the earth, useless, and he's killed. And that sword continues to play a role actually throughout the rest of the movie, and in a true chiastic fashion comes back at the end of the movie, and Conan uses it to exact revenge. So it's an incredible story symbolically. The reason I'm telling you this, which seems completely out of place probably, is because there is also within Christianity a riddle that you must learn, that you must make the discipline your own. And that is the riddle of living water. The riddle of what Christ is as the fountain of life in your life. And this gospel is presented as he speaks to this woman in a very riddle-like fashion. And the woman has to kind of figure out what it is that this man is saying to her, and who is this man? And what is the life that he is calling her to? And one of the things that he says to her to kind of show her that he is not just some, crazy person talking to her randomly, and he shows that he has some, at least prophetic knowledge. He says, go and call your husband. And she says, I have no husband. He says, you were right that she said you have no husband. You have had 5 husbands, and the one that you have now is not your own. And then she kind of says, oh, I see you are a prophet. You know something about me. And then it's kind of left until she goes back to the city and uses that as evidence. This man knew everything I ever did. Who is he? Maybe he's the Messiah. The Holy Fathers of the Church have read this gospel, and this, in particular, the riddle of the 5 husbands and the one who is not your own, with great creativity and insight. For example, they've read it kind of in terms of scriptural tradition, that the Samaritans, who were a people who had broken the kingdom of the north kingdom from the southern kingdom of Judah, so they weren't Jews, but they were descended from the Hebrews. They had the 5 books of the law of Moses, but they didn't have the rest of the books of the prophets and the writings and the histories. So they were part of the tradition. They had those 5 husbands, the 5 books of Moses of the Torah, but they were no longer truly part of the covenant with God. They were not married to God in the true covenant. So the one who you're with is not your husband, right? So that was one symbolism. Another symbolism was that the 5 husbands that she had were the 5 senses, in the sense that our basic human experience is based on these sense experiences, list them off. We have sight, sound, taste, sense, smell, and touch. And that she had become wedded to the sensual world and not the spiritual world. And so because of that, the one she was not with was not truly her husband, because she was enslaved to the passions. She was not truly her own. She was not truly wed. She was in this adulterous relationship, almost, if you will, with the world. So I want to take that interpretation today and actually stretch it out and reapply it a little bit differently, but in the same spirit. And that is to look at, since we're talking about 5 marriages or 5 love relationships that this woman had had, what if it symbolizes the 5 love relationships that we experience in human life? And love relationships may not be the right term, because you're going to think, is he talking about the 4 different loves that C.S. Lewis talked about? No. I'm actually talking about the 4 dimensions in which we love. The Lord is asked, what is the greatest commandment? And what does he say? You shall love the Lord your God with all your strength, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your heart. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So that are 4 dimensions to what it means to love, or 5 ways in which we can love God through our human experience and also through our social experience with our neighbor that reflects that. So what am I saying? If we take that symbolism of the 5 husbands, we could look at all 5 of those things that God has called us to love God with and see how they can be distorted. If we don't do it in spirit and in truth, as God has called us to, those 5 dimensions of love in our life can be distorted and messed up. And the riddle of the living water, the discipline of love, is lost in us. So let's quickly go through that. You shall love the Lord with all your strength. On the most immediate level, this is our physical strength, our health, our energy, our vitality. But vitality, and we can love, the problem is when we don't love God with that, but we love it for itself. When we begin to love our physicality for itself, so we become obsessed with health, with fitness, with food. This is a great temptation because it seems so wise in the world, right? It seems like such a good idea to be really concerned about those things all the time. But it can become a false god too, right? We can become very selfish, self-oriented, very self-indulgent, very focused, and we start to forget the bigger picture. Because as good as that health and fitness may be, as good as that physical strength may be, there comes a time when it fails. You cannot trust it. Not men, not women, not beasts. Not strength, not health, not fitness. Even that will fail. Even that will fail. Just by the virtue of the fact that we live in a world in which there's cosmic radiation hurtling through space, eventually that's going to hit you enough times to cause cancer. So we are in a world of planned obsolescence. Our bodies are not naturally immortal in this world right now. But strength can also be a lot of other things. There's a lot of other ways in which we have might. You know, we have our creativity, we have our energy, we have our passion and our will to do things. We have our ambitions, we have our career goals, we have our economic might and our economic strength, our earning potential. All of those things are worldly examples of strength. And we can love God through those things, and that's why we have them. But we can also love them for themselves, and when we do that, they become distorted. When we do that, they become an end to themselves, and that end is perdition. We lose the very value of what they are. And so we start to fall apart. We fight harder and harder for less and less, and then we wonder why we can't stay ahead in life. So strength is meant to serve our love for God, not to be an end in itself. Similarly, our mind. Our mind is our greatest asset. We were talking about this in our Friday book study. St. Maxim is talking about the importance of intelligence. Intelligence is a gift from God, but it is distorted when it doesn't serve God, when it's used for its own sake. We can idolize our own intelligence. As a culture, as a human race, we seem to be doing this because we seem to think we have all the answers now. We've figured it all out, and if we don't have all the answers, we're going to get to it soon enough because, gosh darn it, we're smart, we're clever, we're intelligent. That's a distortion of our intelligence in the end, though. True intelligence should always retain within itself some humility. True science is intrinsically humble. A lot of people like to say, but science, 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 and they put science in the position that science never put itself. Science is simply saying, I know what I can observe, and I know what I can test, and I know what I can repeat, and based on that, I will say what I can know about the things I can know about. But there's a whole lot of other things that we think about, that we know about, that we experience as human beings, that is not limited to just the observable and experimental. So science has never meant itself to become this end-all be-all of all the answers of the world. How does science explain beauty? How does science explain love? How does science truly explain logic, philosophical truth? These are things beyond the realm of science. With our soul, we can love God too. What does that mean? Doesn't our soul include our mind and our heart and all this? Yeah. Maybe we should think of soul as like our personhood. Remember a few weeks ago, Palm Sunday, I talked to you about how the culture today, the kind of, one of the things, the what do you call it? The bellwether, the zeitgeist of today is authenticity. That we be true to ourselves, and that the greatest of sins is not to be authentic, not to be true to whatever you think you are. And we have seen that has become an idol. We have seen that become a false god. Because we don't know who we are. The human being is a profound mystery. The soul is an inner universe, as Father Roman Braga would say. Infinite, explorable. And our whole life as Christians, as human beings, is to explore that inner universe and find God dwelling there. That's how we love God with all our soul. But as soon as we say, no, that's what my soul is, that's who I am, and that's all that I am, basically, which is in parentheses, we've actually cut the strength of our soul out from underneath us. We've cut the very purpose of our soul out from underneath us. We're not meant to be limited, isolated, and so easily defined. But our soul becomes the universe through which we encounter God. And our heart, did you ever try to carry a cup of coffee up or down a set of stairs? I have a set of stairs in my house that has carpet that can attest to the fact that I have. And failed, right? Because especially if you fill it up too high, any movement makes it jiggle, and then you try to compensate for that movement, right? Or you try to hold it still, and then it makes itself. Anybody? So Deacon Nicholas works in that lab at the Carteret that has the huge wave pool. Just a little bit of motion, and the whole thing gets crazy. It's amazing. And the coffee cup is just a miniature version. And so you're trying. The heart is like that coffee cup. If we focus on it being full all the time, and we're just focused on all those feelings inside of us, so we want to have a rich, full emotional life. The second something comes to jostle it, it becomes a raging sea. You ever notice that? Somebody who's all into following their bliss and wants to have that good feeling are like the most easily rageaholic people. Like as soon as something goes wrong, I mean, I'm like this. I've been there. You want to feel the feels. You want to have that rich thing, but like it becomes a drug. It becomes a drug. You can't handle the highs. You can't handle the lows. You can't keep steady. The heart needs to have a purpose and a focus as well. And that focus must be the love of God, which leads it towards what the fathers call apathy. Not apathy, but dispassionate quality. Not a raging quality, not a dead quality, but a calm quality, which is a little different. Serene, the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding. And then lastly is the love of the neighbor. Loving your neighbor is a good thing, right? All of these things are good. They're all created good. But we can love our neighbor, our family member, our spouse, our boyfriend, our girlfriend, whoever it is. We can love the relationship. We can love the idea of the relationship, even if the relationship is garbage. And if we love those relationships and those people more than we love God, we actually hurt ourselves and the one we love. I've said this in other sermons before. But when we love others and put them ahead of God, we're actually hurting them. We put on them a responsibility that they can't possibly live up to. We put on them a power over us that they can't do. They can love us, but eventually their strength, their heart, their mind, their soul will also run dry. It will drain them dry. They can't fill that God-shaped hole inside of us. So love them, but love them in their place. And remember to love God first. And by loving God first with all your soul, your strength, your mind, your heart, you will be able to love your neighbor as yourself in a way that's healthy, productive, generous, mutually reciprocal, and so forth. And all of these things are good. So this is the riddle of the living water, is that if we look at all of these dimensions of love in our life, and we keep going back to them over and over again, we'll always be thirsty. We'll always run dry. We'll never be able to really be satisfied. There's only one person who can provide us the water from which we draw that becomes within us a fountain of life, so that we don't have to look at limited earthly things or other people to fill our needs. It's that relationship with Jesus Christ, the one who is truly our husband, the one who is truly the bridegroom of the church, the one who is truly the soulmate of the human race. In him and through him we are established, in him we are nourished, in him we are satisfied. And we have to have that relationship with him to know that. You say, yeah, I like the idea of Jesus. I like the idea of what he said. I like who he was. But I don't know him. If you would know who it is who says to you, give me a drink of water, you would ask him for water. And he would give you living water. And you would never thirst again. Jesus Christ asks you for a drink of water. A little bit of your soul, a little bit of your heart, a little bit of your mind, a little bit of your strength, and a little bit of time in your social life, so that you can get to know him, so that you can encounter him and make him your own, so that he can rise up within you and spring forth rivers of living water. Christ is among us. Christ is risen.